Hello everybody, so I hope you're all having a good Christmas and looking forward to a happy New Year's and all that as well. Today was the last day of the Beerhawk calendar, so they're all gone, and the last one out was Founders Breakfast Stout. Now I'm going to drink that shortly, but I thought I'd do a quick review of the whole calendar and take you through some of the beers that were in it this year, just have a quick chat about those. So yeah, let's get on with that. Right, so I'm just going to very quickly go through the beers in sequential order that they came out of the calendar and have a quick chat about them. Overall, I thought the calendar was pretty good this year. Now I did wait for it to come out at a quite heavily discounted rate, so I got it on during the Black Friday sales, so it was a reduced price then. Also used a discount code that I got off of one of the forums on Facebook, which took another 20% off. So in the end I got it for 40 quid, which works out to about £1.60 something per beer. As far as I'm concerned, with almost anything in it, that would have been a good deal, so I was quite happy with it. But I thought the standard of the beers overall were definitely an improvement on the previous year's one, which I thought started well last year and then petered out pretty badly towards the end with some pretty average beers in it. My opinion, overall it was much better this year, but again, quite a few hits and misses. So anyway, let's go through what we had. I didn't do videos for each beer, but I'll just talk about what I thought about them retrospectively. Okay, so I saved all the doors off the calendar because it had a little description of each beer on it, and I thought I'd just rattle through these very quickly to tell you what was in there and what I thought of the different beers. So let's get on with that quickly. So day one was Sierra Nevada California IPA, a light session IPA, perfectly decent, no real issues with it, but a little bit underwhelming for the first beer out of the calendar. Day two was a Westmalle double, so kind of benchmark Belgian double there. It's a nice beer. I think most people, if they tried a double, have probably tried that one though, so maybe I would have preferred something a little bit more obscure, but can't knock it in terms of quality. Day three was Magic Rock Sorcery, which was a low strength sort of hazy pale ale / IPA, 3.9%. Loads of hopping in it as per usual with Magic Rock beers. Not one of their best ones, but for a real light 3.9% beer I thought it was a good effort, and very tasty. Day four was Thornbridge Mint Chocolate Chip Lucaria, which was a kind of sweet stout made to taste like mint choc chip ice cream. Definitely had the mint flavour, definitely had the sweet milk stout flavour to it. I quite enjoyed that beer. Maybe a little bit sweet for my taste, but a nice Christmassy sort of themed dark beer to put in there, so quite decent. Then we had 4 Pure Juice Box. I've tried that beer before, and the first time I had it I thought it was pretty underwhelming, but maybe this can was a lot fresher, but it had really bright juicy kind of vibrant hop flavours coming through it, and definitely that real kind of fruit juicy flavour that the name implies, so really enjoyed that one. A good beer. The next one was an interesting one. So we had Wild Beer Company's Sleeping Lemons, which is a Goza style beer made with preserved lemons, and not one that I've tried before. A nice kind of change up of style there for the calendar. It had almost like a shandy like taste to it to me, so the sourness and the saltiness is quite restrained in it, but it is there. Interesting beer, really nice. Maybe not that suited for winter drinking, but I would definitely enjoy that in the summer. Day 7, Birra del Borgo. Now if you haven't seen the video of last year's Birra del Borgo review from the same calendar, I suggest you go and watch that if you want to laugh at me pulling some stupid faces. So they couldn't really get any worse than that beer this year, but they didn't get much better, to be honest. I thought it was poor, quite a kind of acrid bitterness to it. I didn't like the flavour combination in it. Didn't really know what they were trying to achieve with this beer, to be honest, because it was sort of like a bit of a mash-up of different flavours that didn't work together. So yeah, Birra del Shito for me, unfortunately. Next up was Mondo All Caps, which was a fruity kind of galaxy hopped American Pilsner, they called it. I mean, if you put loads of fruity hops in it, it kind of ceases to be an American Pilsner for me, but I enjoyed the beer, very easy to drink. Nothing particularly exciting there, but just a real nice, easy drinking Pilsner, which disappeared in no time. Day 5 was Spartan Optimator, which is a German Doppelbock. Loads of big, rich, malty flavours. I really enjoyed this. It was a nice change of style. A good kind of wintry beer to have in the calendar as well, I thought. And yeah, just thoroughly delicious, actually. I think this was probably one of my favourite beers out of the calendar this year. Then we had Roosters 24/7. So this was one of my least favourite beers out of the calendar. Just thoroughly, yeah, unremarkable, lacking in flavour for me. More bitterness than kind of fruity flavours. Didn't like that one much at all. The next one up was a much better example of an IPA, and that was Mosaic by Pirate Life. Good strong IPA, this one, so I think it was about 7 something %. Loads of Mosaic in it, had bags of that rich, dank, rich kind of dank Mosaic flavour. Yeah, really liked that one. Decent beer. I was excited when the next one came out because it was a Mikkeller Pale Ale, and I've not really tried very many, if any at all, Mikkeller beers, to be honest. Henry Jagger, but when I opened the can and tasted it, I was very disappointed, to be honest. It was a weird tasting beer. It didn't really have hop flavour to it for me. It was just had this odd kind of malty taste, but not even a particularly pleasant malt flavour. Don't know what was wrong with that, but if that's the way they intend it to taste, it's not something that I would ever go back and pay for again. Then we had Goose Island Madame Rose, which was an interesting one. So a cherry sour beer aged in French wine barrels. Now, I'm not a big fan of sour beers anyway, and this was a little bit outside of my comfort zone, but I think a lot of people who enjoy sour beers would really like this. It just had a bit too much for me of that kind of slightly farmyard kind of flavour to it that you get with the wild yeast. So I didn't particularly enjoy it that much, but I think it was you know, a well-made beer nonetheless. Then we had Raw by Moore Brewery, which is their English bitter, well-hopped English bitter. It's nice beer, lots of rich malt flavour, tastes like a bitter basically with hopping levels similar to an APA or a session IPA for me, but nice beer. Then it was Brewdog Electric India, which is their hoppy saison. Brewdog get a lot of stick these days, but this is one of their beers that is kind of still standing up, I think. It's a real nice light introduction to the saison style. Not too funky, but got enough of that spicy flavour to give you an idea of what that beer's about. Good beer, enjoyed it. Hoegaarden Grand Cru was next up. This is basically a kind of amped up version of Hoegaarden. So I think it's 8 something %. Really rich, thick kind of beer, but with that traditional kind of wit beer flavouring of coriander and orange peel. Really nice, a good Christmassy flavour to it as well. Yeah, that went down quite well. Then we had Tiny Rebel Dutty. A few too many of these kind of fruity sort of Vermont style IPAs in the calendar. I thought that was maybe one criticism I would say this year, and this isn't a particularly good example in my opinion. I think it's a little bit too bitter to be a kind of Vermont style session IPA. You know, tastes okay as a standard kind of like IPA, American IPA, but I don't think it's one of their better beers, to be honest. The next one I did enjoy, which was Full Fathom 5 by North Brewing, a coffee and coconut flavoured porter. The coconut didn't come through quite as much as I would have liked, but it had some nice flavours to it and a very decent beer, a nice dark one to have in a Christmassy themed calendar. Then we had another Goza beer, so this was by Tuol, Goza to Hollywood. This one was, I believe, oranges, and it had a bit more of a kind of pronounced Goza flavour in terms of the saltiness and the sour notes. I quite enjoyed it up to a point, but it kind of started to overwhelm me a little bit towards the end. But then I'm not, again, a big fan of the sort of sour beers personally, but an interesting one to have in the calendar anyway. Next one was a real good one. This was Bostill's limited release 2018, which was a barley wine, 12.5%, so real big hitter. And it was oak aged with vanilla, but it had some other really interesting flavours in there. So it mentions Madeira on the bottle. Don't know whether it's from Madeira barrels, or whether it's got Madeira added to it, but a nice flavour. Went really well with some cheese actually, that one. So good beer. Then we had Camden in collaboration with Wicked Weed doing a IPA. It was a decent IPA, nothing much else to report there. Again, a little bit overkill in terms of the number of IPAs in there. Next was Cranachan Wee Heavy by Tempest. I like the concept of this. It was supposed to be a kind of Cranachan themed beer, obviously with raspberry flavour and lots of malt, but it didn't work. It was neither delivering on the kind of raspberry flavour for me, or the maltiness, or the whiskey flavours that you should have there. It's wasn't strong enough for a wee heavy, in my opinion. It was only 6% and a bit, and yeah, just a bit of a flop, to be honest. Then we had the Lef Winter Beer. It was good. I'm not a massive fan of Lef normally, but this was a nice Christmassy beer, a little bit sweet, but then all of their beers are, to be honest. But again, another one that went really well with some cheese, so a nice yeah, spice sort of wintry flavour beer. And then last but not least, we have the Founders Breakfast Porter. So this one, I knew that Founders was the last brewery left to come out, because they put a list of the breweries on the side. I was kind of hoping that it would be a KBS, but this is the kind of little brother to KBS, their original breakfast stout, which is double chocolate coffee oatmeal stout. I have had this before, but let's just have a quick drink of it and see how it pours out. So nice, big, thick, fluffy head on there. I was quite energetic with the pour, but it's not overly carbonated, so it's just to get a bit of head on there. Just off white, lovely dark colour to it. Big hit of coffee on the nose, but you've got that kind of smooth, roasty flavour or aroma that you get with oatmeal stouts as well. And again, yeah, taste-wise, big hit of coffee to it. I don't actually drink coffee, but I really enjoy the flavour in beers, oddly enough. And this is a really good example of a coffee-infused beer. So that wraps it up. Like I said before, I thought the calendar was much improved this year, and for the price I got it, I was more than happy with it. So yeah, I'll maybe give it a go again next year if I can get the right price. So cheers everyone, and like I said, Merry Christmas to you all and Happy New Year.
I'm the dude, so that's what you call me, you know? That or his dudeness, or duder, or you know, El Duderino.